I have to put a sensitive content warning at the start of this video. Consistently and throughout, there is heavy discussion and reference to sexual harm, rape, and such similar difficult to digest topics. So, viewer discretion is advised. What is love? Even today, people can give their own interpretations of a correct answer, but there is no universally accepted one. One of the things that all the science in the world hasn't yet cracked. Is it a feeling in your chest, a longing for companionship or someone to confide in, to form both a physical and emotional connection with someone, and to be with each other until death itself drags you to the other side while you're screaming and begging for one more day? I guess that even if you disagree with my definition, we can all agree that it isn't a bad one. But if I had to add one last thing, it would involve a level of trust and vulnerability. It requires all parties to leave all their cards on the table by silently agreeing to not fold any of them. The moment you lose your trust in your partner, your relationship will never be the same. In fact, you can consider it over. And depending on what exactly happened, it could also cause irreversible damage in the most extreme of scenarios. This concept of broken trust isn't even exclusive in the romantical sense. Friends, family, co-workers, and so on. The more trust you place in someone, the more lethal it could be in the end. Though that's not everyone, of course there are good people out there. But putting trust in the wrong people, even for those who are expert judges of character, can sometimes happen. Physical violence, verbal abuse, emotional manipulation, the list can go on. It can happen anywhere, to anyone, and by anyone. Unfortunately, this is what happened to Kate Seto, the main focus of the series. In middle school, he put his trust into the wrong teacher. The result of this was him getting raped. This isn't an exaggeration or fabrication of what really happened here. She, a grown adult, forcibly pushed down a minor and had sex with him against his will. He pleaded to stop. He was afraid. He felt no pleasure or satisfaction. Seto kept apologizing as if he was in the wrong, hoping it would somehow fix the situation. He struggled and resisted, yet eventually he gave up and accepted his horrendous reality. Following this repulsive incident, the school took appropriate measures and the rapists received their consequences, but nothing could be done to erase or undo what happened. For a long time, he couldn't go to school or head aside. There were times where he just caught up in a ball and couldn't do anything. Thankfully though, he had literally some of the best friends he could ever have in his case, and with time, he healed some. I said some with quotes because in the end, Seto ended up choosing to go to an all-boys high school, purposely distancing himself from girls as much as physically possible. Fast forwarding to the present, he started to develop an interest in women. But even right now, it is somewhat unclear whether this longing is naturally developed or his desire to be normal like everybody else. In reality, his own mental processing and emotion towards women is potentially and most likely irreversibly damaged. He sometimes struggles with being touched by someone of the opposite gender. In the worst case of scenarios, such as PTSD, could trigger and suddenly relive his trauma all over again. Eventually, a girl named Tsubasa, by all definitions, literally gets entangled with Seto. And the very next day, confesses to him, believing it is fate that they ran into each other. From here on out, the story unfolds and takes place. Sensitive Boy, the name of this manga, directly confronts and tells the story of a male survivor of rape. And with that, the double standard that comes with the idea of male survivors from female perpetrators. Even in the comments of the series, you can sometimes find people making light of exactly what this series is trying to fight against. This isn't a fantasy world where rules and societal norms are different from ours. It is a mirror of our own planet and soil to show us the ugly reality that we, for some reason, act like doesn't exist. Furthermore, because the story takes place in high school, not everybody is emotionally developed and fully mature. Because of that, 9 out of 10 people involved in the story screw up in some way at some capacity. I'm not saying because they make different scalars of mistakes they are bad people. Not at all. Rather, outside of the obvious exception here, I don't think there are any bad people in this manga. Even for those who are in the right, there may be objective criticism you can make on how they handled the situation. They are teenagers who can't even drive yet in Japan, but are dealing with a heavy topic that even some adults can struggle with. These students are at a point in their lives where they are still figuring out themselves, let alone other people that, if at first glance they can't understand, they immediately go on the defensive. There are the popular kids who hop from one relationship to another like it's no big deal. Some who might be unaware that their sexuality is different from other people. Another's perception of what dating, romance, and what comes with it might be different or biased. To put it bluntly, this manga deconstructs what a romantic relationship is and uses differently tinted lenses to observe it. Something that the author heavily hammers in is a concept of being quote-unquote normal and what a quote-unquote normal relationship is. Seto has a longing to be normal despite not fully addressing his trauma. This isn't even isolating how he wants a relationship, but while wearing a mask every day that only allows others to see the tip of the iceberg. Rather, his normal is going to end up being different from the general population's normal. Even for those who are in the majority's norm, there are those who slightly diverge from others to make them feel as if they are an imposter among the crowd. As you can tell, this isn't your average romance manga. Sure, it may have a tag, but to call this series wholesome and heartwarming would be a very grave mistake. It is heavy, it can feel emotionally charged. You can sometimes feel anxiety and stress even in the best of times. It is a very different series that not all fans of the romance genre would want to read or even be able to digest. I'm not saying this with the intention to brag, but I was a very early reader of the series when the initial first couple of chapters got translated. It got my attention, and I wanted to bring people's attention to the series, but there was so little to work with that I couldn't really do anything, and even if I did, I didn't know where the show would go because, again, it was just that early, and I'd probably have to wait a long time for me to find out what happens. But then, 2 days later, another translation was released. Surprise, surprise. Then another 2 days passed with another drop. Then another one. Every 2 days, the translation team working on Sensitive Boy released a chapter. Up to today, as of when I'm finishing the script, there are only one chapter behind the official Japanese release. For those who have seen some of my content before, you may have noticed that I didn't really joke around in this video. I did that on purpose. That is because of how serious the subject nature is, and of course, how seriously everyone else took it. The translators, the readers who were invested enough to leave comments on every chapter, and the author themselves. Even at the end of the chapters, sometimes the translation team put in snippets of comments of the Japanese readers for us to see and take a small look of where their head is at. If there was a series I want to absolutely pop the fuck off and gain traction, it would be this. I find it difficult to see an anime adaptation in the future due to how delicate the topic is, but American Dream. From what I could find, Sensitive Boy releases bi-weekly on the Ganma app, so if you can read Japanese, then have at it. Go support the author, please, because this isn't an easy topic to discuss, but they are doing an amazing job of handling it. Hell, from what I could find, this is their first official serialized manga. So, give them a round of applause, they really do deserve it. And I hope those who go on reading Sensitive Boy are able to properly grasp its content as well.